I hope you all are doing well, and I am back with a new class on programming in C. In our last class, we have seen the basic structure of C programs, and by now what we know that C, like other programming languages, it solves many problems in our real life that we cannot solve manually, or manually maybe not that much efficiently. So we take the help of programming language. And like many other languages, whenever we perform some work, or maybe when we play some game, or whether we are writing a program using any programming language, we need to follow some set of rules. We cannot disobey them. Likewise, in C programming also, it has some set of rules, it has some syntax, it has its own features that we need to follow. So keeping them in mind, we have to write our programs. Otherwise, if we disobey them, then we will get compilation errors and we cannot move ahead. So this class, like my previous class also, will be very helpful, especially to them who are very new to the world of programming. So without wasting time, let's get started. Now, as you can see on the screen, there is a sample program. So we will see what is the first rule. The first rule says that every C program requires a main function, which is the beginning of the execution of the program. So as I said in my last class also, that function, what is a function? Function is, we can say, is a block of code that performs some specific task, or that has some specific functionality. So it could be some library functions that are already defined, whose functionalities are already fixed. It could be some functions which are defined by us, by users, so we can change their functionality as per our requirement. But in every C program, there will be only one main function that we have to remember. More than one main function if we use in C program, then that will not be allowed, and program will show compilation error during compilation. So that is the first thing that we have to remember. And one more thing that we are noticing here, the name of the function is main, and that is followed by opening parenthesis and closing parenthesis. So instead of parenthesis, if we use any other like brace or any bracket, then that will not be allowed. And definitely opening and closing parentheses, they will be written one after another. It's not like using after the name of the function we are using the opening parenthesis, and somewhere else in the program we are using the closing parenthesis. No. And one more thing that we have noticed here, the function before that we have written int, that is actually integer. We will be learning in our future classes, but in today's class, whatever points I will be discussing, we have to remember all the points by heart. Then the second point, the execution of a function begins at the opening brace of the function and ends at the corresponding closing brace. So here in the program, as we can see, after the main function that we have written here, that is followed by opening brace, and this opening brace is followed by closing brace. Within this opening and closing brace, we write the main logic that we want to execute as part of the function. So every function, or here the main function, as I said in my last class also, that it has two parts, the declaration part and execution part. So in the execution part, we write the main logic of the program, and whenever we are dealing with program, definitely it will solve some problem, and it will handle some input output data, and those data will be stored in some variables. So those variables which we will be using in execution part, they should be declared along with their data types before the execution part, and that will come under declaration part. So first declaration part and then the execution part. And again, this opening and closing brace will come in pair. It's not like we have mentioned opening brace and we have forgot to mention or use the closing brace. Again, it will show compilation error, so that we have to remember. Next point is, C programs are written in lowercase letters, means in small letters. Uppercase letters are used, means they can be used for some special cases like symbolic names and output string. So as you can see in this program, the program has been written in lowercase, in small letters. Suppose we want to print something on the screen, on the terminal, or maybe in output files, there we can use capital letters, and accordingly that has to be written in the program also. And also in the last class we have seen that when we declare symbolic constants, there also we the constant name we declare or we write by using uppercase letters. Again, that is not mandatory, that there is no hard and fast rule. Just the normal variables that we use in our program in the within the main function, local variables, and even the global variables that we write before the main function outside the all the functions, they are normally written in small letters in lowercase. That is the convention that we follow. And just to differentiate between the normal variables, be it local or global variables, with the symbolic constants that we use in the program, symbolic constants are written in uppercase. Otherwise, the whole C program is written in lowercase, that we need to follow, that we need to remember. Then the next rule, all the words in a program line must be separated from each other by at least one space or a tab or a punctuation mark. So this is a program, as you can see that this int data type and this main, the main function name, there is at least one space gap. Similarly here in double, the variable that we have used before that also we have left some space. Between I and j there is a comma, and these are the list of punctuation marks that we may use in our C program. But it's not that all the punctuation marks will be allowed everywhere in the program. No, it again has some rules that we need to follow. And again, within this for loop, as you can see, between this I is equal to 1 and I less than equal to 5, there is a semicolon. Then again, every statement in the execution part within a function that is terminated by semicolon. Now the next rule, every program statement in a C program must end with a semicolon, that I have already told you and you already know that. And then all the variables must be declared for their types before they are used in the program. That rule also we know. Then every opening brace should have a corresponding closing brace, that we know. As we can see here under this main function, this is the opening brace, this is the closing brace. So this, between this opening and closing brace, whatever is written, that is actually part of that main function, that is the main logic. And this is the declaration part, this is the for loop. Again, for this for loop, this is the opening brace and this is the closing brace. So within this opening and closing brace, or this, within this that set of braces, whatever logic we have written, actually that is the part of this for loop. And within that for loop, again we have another for loop, and for that inner for loop, again we have this opening brace and closing brace. And within that set of braces, whatever codes or whatever lines we have written here, that is the main logic for this for loop. But these two lines, they are not part of this for loop, as these two lines have been written outside this closing brace. But since these two lines have been written within this set of braces, so these two lines are part of this for loop. And along with these two for loops and their corresponding logics, and these two declarations, these two lines where we have declared the variables, the everything, the whole thing is coming under this main function, as they all these things have been written within this set of braces. So this way we can arrange our logic in our program nicely. Then the next rule, a program must include header files using hash include directive, preprocessor directive, if it uses special names and functions that it does not define. So about the header file, we already know that before the main function we use the header file names. That is specially for the library functions or inbuilt functions that we will be using in our main program. Here we have printf, scanf, these are library functions. Their definitions are written within this stdio, standard input output header file. So whenever a C compiler will read printf, it will basically fetch the definition from this header file. So accordingly it will understand what this printf function does, and we don't have to bother. So whatever library functions that is supported by definitely C or C in this language, then if we are using them, then the corresponding header file has to be mentioned before the main function. And there are many header files, and it's not that every header file has the definition of all the library functions. No, it has the separation. as per their functionality. And we have separate class on commonly or mostly use header files and library functions. But whenever we are using any header file, that has to be preceded by this preprocessor directive has include. And in case of symbolic constant also, we have seen in my last class that whenever we are declaring symbolic constant along with its value, then that comes with again one directive, that is hash define. And these directives hash include, hash define, as we have noticed here, that they are not terminated by semicolon. This is one interesting point, that the sign hash before compiler directive must appear in the first column of the line. So as you can see, this is the first column, and this hash that we have written as part of the directive, hash include or maybe hash define, this hash should be written in the first column. The next important point is indentation. Indentation is important, but it will not show you any compilation error if you don't follow or maintain. What it does basically, it increases the readability or legibility of the program. So when a programmer, when a user goes through the program, the logic, he or she will understand the logic quickly, and also the program looks clear and nice. So as you can see in this program itself, that after declaring the main function, there is the opening brace, fine, and between this opening brace and the variables that we are declaring in the declaration part, there is a gap. So that is the indentation. Then after declaring the variables, we are using for loop. This is the outer for loop, and again for this for loop there is a opening brace, and between this opening brace and the inner for loop there is a gap that we are maintaining. So it clearly differentiate between the inner for loop and outer for loop. So when we have the nested for loops, we may have within this for loop again we may have another for loop. So that way we can clearly understand that which one is the most outer for loop and which is the most inner for loop, and who comes under whom. And for this for loop also, as you can see, the main part, the main logic that we have written here, that between this opening brace and these three lines also we have some gaps. So this type of indentation, if we follow, if we maintain, then it increases the readability. Then the next point or next important feature of C programming or of any programming language is how to comment out the lines of the programs if we need. Here the first two lines, which is colored in light cyan, it actually describes the program. This is a sample program, and here we have two lines. So these two lines which have been commented out, they will not be executed. And here also we have a single line that is also colored in light cyan. But how the compiler will understand that which are the lines that it needs to process and which are the lines that it will leave? So for that there is rule in every programming language, and in case of C, if suppose we want to comment out a single line in the program, it could be any line that is not required, then we have to use two front slashes like I have used here. But if we want to comment out many lines, means more than one line or a block of code, then instead of using two front slashes in every line, what you can do, suppose it we need to comment out 1000 of lines of code. So what we will do, we will put these two slashes in every line? No, what we will do is, when the first line before the line starts, in the beginning we will use a single front slash followed by an asterisk, and then at the end of the last line again we will use an asterisk followed by a single front slash. So when the compiler will get these two symbols at the beginning and at the end of these thousands of lines of the in that program, it will understand, okay, these thousands of lines are basically commented out. So this way, using this only two symbols in two lines, we can comment out a block of lines. So that is the rule in case of C programming, and this is all about all the basic rules that we follow when we write a C program. Now this is a sample program. If you have understood the basic rules of C programming, Then by looking at this program or this piece of lines, you let me know that where we have not obeyed the rules. Don't go by the logic and don't take the help of any compiler. Just by looking at this sample program and from your understanding that you have gained from this class and also from the previous class, what are the errors that you can find in this program? You can let me know in the comment box. So this is all about today's class. See you in the next class. Till then, stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.